Yay!
We're here.
We are. Hold on, I'll move this up.
Oh,
Cool.
can you hear me okay?
I can. Oh, look at those beautiful pictures in the background.
Yeah, so much color behind me.
Yay!
Oh, this is my
Yay.
first time doing this. This is exciting. Thank you,
It
Angela.
is. It was a bit. I think the first time I did it was a bit nerve-wracking because it was like, what if they're not there? What if I'm just talking to myself?
Yes,
Oh, it's so great to have a conversation with you, and I'm really looking forward to the subject that we're going to talk about today.
I
Um,
know. Me
yeah,
too.
yeah. For anybody who's watching who doesn't know either of us, I'll introduce myself and then I'll hand over to you. So my name is Angela Murray from Living Life in Colour, and I'll say my purpose in life is to help wannabe artists get out of their own way and actually take that tiny first step to believing that they are an artist and actually giving it a go. And I'm connected to so many beautiful souls around the world who are doing similar things in their own ways, and which is why I do these interviews. And today's guest is Kristen Fagan. I love that you call yourself a creatrix because that's something that really appeals to me as well.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and also a doula.
Oh, you're a doula?
No, I'm not. My other half is though.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Yes.
So I'll hand over to you to introduce yourself because it's quite the
Thank you.
mixture.
All right. Thanks so much, Angela. Yeah, so I'm Kristen Fagan. I'm with Kristen Fagan Art and Design. And that's my word of the year is creatrix. So I'm sort of standing in that power, standing in that creative power with that word. I just heard of it recently, actually, as I was trying to figure out what energy I wanted to pull in to this year. And it's an old word.
Ah, I didn't realize
It's
that.
actually been around
Yeah,
for like a really long time. It's a really old
yeah,
word. So that was
yeah.
kind of fun to, oh, I've never heard of this. And this
Mm,
feels like super powerful and just
yeah.
um, an embodiment of just being all things creative, Um,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
pretty awesome. So
yeah.
what I do, I haven't, perfected actually my little succinct what I do is. I love that
What is
you
your elevator pitch or whatever they call it?
right. Exactly. But I feel like what my passion is to just show up here in my creative power and share what
Mm,
I'm learning while I'm learning it in an effort to bring people in to that creative space and really empower them to dive into their own creativity. I
mm,
love working with intention. I love working with intuition. I love working with symbolism. And so they're all very playful and very magical, and
yeah,
I feel like I'm here to remind people that we all have a little bit of magic inside and that we just have to kind of let our guard down a little bit to allow it to flow
yeah,
in and give ourselves the space, the time and the space to really encourage ourselves to flourish. Because I always find with my creative practices, I get to know more about myself and I get to know more about my inner workings, what really fuels me, what my desires are. And, that just makes me feel even more comfortable and empowered in the real world when I'm out in the real world, because I've gotten to know myself more and more intimately through the creative practice.
yeah. Have you found that once you've embraced creativity, that it actually changes the way that you look at the world?
Yes, of course.
Mm,
You
mm,
can't. I feel like it just, it just taps into like another area that you can just enjoy small moments in a way that you may not have even thought about before, because now, you know, now you're looking at how the trees are blowing when you're sitting somewhere, or, you know, the different colors that the leaves change just by the flicker of the light when it hits the wind. And those kind of things are, I think, are stuff that starts to show up when you really open yourself up to creative practices.
Yeah, it's funny you're saying that actually about the trees, because this morning, bearing in mind, like I've spent most of my working life in a very logical corporate job, I got up this morning and I opened the curtains, and we're very lucky we live in a rural setting, and there was just the mist, and the sky was sort of a peach color, and you could just see the trees. And I went into the bedroom, and my other half was still asleep. I said, you've got to get up and come and look. And I think he's thinking, oh my gosh, who are you?
You're like, it's just so beautiful.
Yeah, come and look at the colors.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's an appreciation that you feel that's just a little bit different when, you know, because, you know, I don't know, I just feel like when I notice something and it really catches me, I'm always thinking like, oh, was I meant to catch that? And what is that telling me? And what's the message that I'm supposed to receive from that? And maybe I'm supposed to use that color in something, or, you know, there's like a whole lot of dialogue that happens
that
just
goes
from
on.
those little moments. Yeah.
One of the things I had put in the intro to this was that we were going to talk about being recovering or recovered, I'm not sure, perfectionists.
We might, I don't know. Are we ever fully recovered?
No, I'm not entirely sure. But I do want to share with people the mistake that I actually made. So I actually, I put out to my newsletter that we were going to have this chat. And the actual line of the newsletter went, I'm a perfectionist, not. And then, so I sent it out. And then it wasn't until this morning I realized that I'd actually put the wrong time on. And so I had to send another one going, oops, the universe has delivered, you know, the exact opportunity to show that I'm seriously not a perfectionist anymore. And I thought what I was going to say before we move on was that had I done that maybe even a year ago, that would have really freaked me out. Like, oh my gosh, I've just made a fool of myself in front of the people that I'm sending my emails to. Whereas this morning it was like, oh, it's fine. I'll just say sorry.
And, you know, how much would you have put so much shame on yourself because of that, right? And like been upset with yourself for maybe a while after it, you know, oh, Angela, you did it again. Like, how did you not look at that first? And all, you know, all of these things that go on in our heads that tell us that we're not good enough. We're not enough, you know? It's sort of, I feel like when you're in that perfectionist space, you're just like ripe for spiraling.
Oh, yes, to a dark place.
Yes. Whereas, you know, when you really get to the point where you're trying to let go of that perfectionism and, you know, be okay with your humanness and be some, you know, just roll with it like you did today. Like, okay, sorry, oops, it happened, you know, I mean, doesn't that sound like such a better way to be living your life? And
it felt much better. Yeah. So when you said that you were previously a perfectionist, what would that look like for you?
Well, for me, I think I just would have things in my mind of how I wanted something to look or how I wanted something to be. It may have had to do with, you know, how I ordered some food from a restaurant and they forgot my favorite part of the meal, you know, and now it was no longer this perfect meal that I wanted to have. And that would throw me into like a very frustrated, upset place. Like this is what I was looking forward to. This is what I spent my money on. And I don't have what I wanted. And I think that's like one example of how you can have that, you know, perfectionism show up in lots of areas of your life. And it just continues to compound and create so much little stressors throughout your day, you know?
Yeah, because I think as well, if you let those things affect you, every single, like you said, every little stressor just piles on top until you feel a little bit like you're being, like, is the world against me and am I being persecuted, you know, to that furthest extent.
Yeah.
But I found that creativity actually helped me catch myself earlier and not take myself quite so seriously. Yeah, because I guess because in the creative process, I mean, look at what's behind me. That
I
is
love
as
it.
messy as it gets.
Right. I love it.
And, yeah, so I'm
It's
trying to embody this in
a
my life, as in
beautiful mess.
it. Yeah, it's. I don't need to know always where things are going, but that perfectionist every now and again I can feel but.
Right. Yeah, you know, and it's one of those things
Mm,
when you've got an idea in mind, a final, you know, like this is how it's supposed to be. You know, I found for me, I would always fall short. And so, you
mhm,
know, I'm trying to strive for something that I just could not attain. It just wasn't ever good enough. It just wasn't ever
yeah.
there. And I found that a lot when I was in college. When I was in college, I was like super stressed. I went to an art college and it was a wonderful program, but it was very competitive. And I wasn't in fine art part of it, but I had some fine art classes. Those were the fun classes because I wasn't really going for a fine art degree. But I remember I would just like really beat myself up with every single thing. I just felt so much competition between my
Wow.
peers and in a way that it was just super unhealthy. And I know a big part of that was my own internal things that I would put on myself, you know, and those striving for a perfect thing that just was never really attainable.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. It's
So,
yeah, good to you talk about that because one of the things, especially when I'm teaching, I do a workshop. I teach a workshop called Dream Big, Paint Big, and that's about painting intuitively. And I think one of the, I think it's either the second or the third week, we start to talk more about. I don't do critique. I actually don't believe in the whole art school. Let's look at what you've made and pull it apart. I actually believe in the opposite, and I think it's to do with my also belief in, you know, the laws of manifesting. So if you focus on what's not working, you tend to end up with more of what's not working. So
right,
I get them to focus on, even if it's just like a color or a very small part of their painting that they like, and let's do a bit more of that and
right.
see what happens. And then, and for me, it's like, well, if you're focusing on what you do like, we're going to bring in more of that. And I think I just have I'm sure it has a place in art school,
Mm.
but I find it, you know, I've got
It's,
some recovering art school people who work with me who
yeah.
that's actually quite damaging.
It's a very vulnerable position to be in, and
Mm.
I do think the critiques have some value, but I also find them to be very traumatic as well. So
Yeah,
where's the balance? I'm not really sure, but
yeah.
it is traumatic to, you know, and, you know, in school they would, you know, you put all your stuff up and everyone's looking at it, and now as a group we're all critiquing it, and you as a student feel like if you don't offer a critique, you're not really participating. So sometimes, you know,
Mm.
so in a lot of ways, how much value does your critique of your peers have of you? I don't know, you know,
Ah, that's a good point.
because they are, you know, they are trying to show themselves in a good light and that they can pick
Mm.
things apart. And they're also, in a lot of ways, I felt very competing, and that's not how I live my life now. But I felt like even the people that I was friendly with, once you got into that kind of an environment, it became a competition, you know?
Yeah.
And that was, I feel that that was a lot of undue stress that wasn't really good for my personality and probably not for most people's personality.
Probably not.
So when I found intuitive painting, I was like, wow, this is like a whole different thing. Like this is just do whatever you want, see what shows up. And like you said, work with what's working and let go of the rest, you know?
Yeah.
Instead
Yeah.
of just pointing out like, oh, that's where I messed up. You go, okay, I really like this, and how do I move this into more of it? And, you know, and naturally the things that you didn't like just go away when you do that, you know?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really a
Yeah.
forgiving process.
It certainly is. I can remember something I learned really early on through a mistake. I was painting, taking a class with someone I wasn't teaching, and we were painting a painting of our safe place. And I'd done this lovely gold background, and I wanted to create like a bubble in the middle and put me in the middle of an outline of me in the bubble. And so I'd created this gold background, and I couldn't wait for it to dry. So they had a heat gun, and so I used the heat gun to dry it and got way too close to the paint, and it bubbled. And in that moment, I was absolutely gutted because we only had the one canvas.
Right.
And then I just had to, I tried pushing it down, but the bubbles were there. That was it. It wasn't gonna undo itself. And then I took it back to the table, and the person next to me went, "Oh, how did you do that?"
Right. It's all in perspective, right?
Is it? Yeah, I've still got it. I wish I knew where it's in here in my studio somewhere, as a reminder that often what you think's a mistake can be the most interesting thing on your painting.
Yes. Oh, 100%. And that was probably maybe that was a little spark for you to move into abstract eventually later on down the road. It was a happy accident.
And I hadn't even heard of happy accidents until much later. Like Bob Ross, he did Happy Little Trees. I think, did he also do Happy Accident? I'm not sure. He didn't hit my.
He did, because I don't remember him. I don't know. I just remember him going with it though. So he was someone I watched all the time as a kid, and I just was so in awe of just that little. He would do almost the same brush marks every time, but you back up, and then all of a sudden there's this amazing landscape, And it was just super cool.
That's a good point, actually, because sometimes when we're painting, we get like this close. And sometimes you actually just need to step back and have a look at the whole thing instead of looking at the tiny details. Yeah. There's probably a life lesson in there.
Yes. I do love to take pictures of my progress. That's something I do quite often because a lot of times I find I overwork things. Like I'm moving too close to that perfectness, and then I've lost some of the magic, And so I'm always playing with this idea of like, I go too far because I'm trying to get to this idea of perfect, and then I have to backtrack and loosen myself up again.
That's quite the journey.
Yeah. So it's almost, and I think in a lot of ways, it's like a reminder of, when you're holding on too tight and you get a little too tight with those little details, you start to lose something. And so taking pictures of my process along the way has helped me see that, because it's helped me see like, oh, when I was working on this 2 days ago, I was in a much better place, and right now I've totally tightened it all up to a point where I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was better when it was looser. So my goal is always like, how do I find that sweet spot before I go too far?
It is definitely a thing, because it's part of what I teach, and we get to a point where I say to them, this whole course is not about getting all intuitive for the first few weeks and then trying to hone it down and down and down. It's to try and remain intuitive right the way through to the end. And it's harder the closer you get to the end, because you start to get attached to what you're creating.
Right.
So you raised a really good point there. Yeah, they do.
That's the perfectionist creeping back in, Oh, it just needs more of this. It just needs that. It just needs that. And then I look back at my pictures and I go, oh, 2 days ago. I should have just
Should have
stopped. Now I got to go back to that. How do I loosen this all back up again?
Exactly. So I was just wondering, like, what was your journey to creativity? How did you become what you are now?
I was a creative child. I was someone who just loved make-believe. I was having tea parties by myself with my little fairy friends I would make up with. And then I did a lot of dance at a young age. And that was, of course, turned into me choreographing all my sisters and my neighbor friends and cousins and anyone I came in contact with. I had to teach them to dance, and we would have to put on a show. And I think that was so, I wasn't really, I probably got interested in more in like actual drawing and painting when I was in like later elementary years. I realized that, oh, this really feels good. I like to draw. I like to, just take a sketchbook and have a quiet place and draw things out. And so I knew pretty early on that I'm going to do something creative because this just is the most fun for me. And that includes all of it. I like to dance. I like to draw. I like to paint. I bead. I'm a graphic designer. So I just love to be in that creative space. It's just my favorite way to be.
Yeah. Because you actually do jewelry tutorials, don't you?
I do. So I kind of fell into that because I became a graphic designer. That's what I went to art school for. And my first job ended up being with a beading company that was a catalog beading company here locally. And then I met someone there that I worked with that I ended up joining her in another beading company. So I've only worked in beading companies as a graphic designer.
Wow. That's cool.
And then, so it's been 20 years in 2 different companies. And so I've always worked on the design part of it. But with the company I'm at now, they started taking me to trade shows. They wanted me to see what people's booths look like, what their setup look like. And then since I was there, they would say, well, you should, do the demo table while you're here. And show people how to make stuff. And I was like, okay. So I started demoing with them, and then I would just do that at shows. And then once we got online and started doing video tutorials, it just organically came, well, hey, Kristen, you've been doing this, for a while, and you make some of your own jewelry. I would do it for fun. And so about 2 years ago, I started doing a weekly jewelry making tutorial every Monday, and still going.
Wow, that's commitment.
Yeah, so it really has been, it's been really fun. And now we do some virtual beading events, which is coming up. We have one coming up in June 11th, 12th, and 13th. The group is called the Great Bead Extravaganza. And we have an Instagram page, but it's actually a Facebook group is where the event takes place in. And it's like 15 different companies, and we just all share different beading tutorials and all the different materials. And I really feel like that, because that was part of my job, I had to show up on a weekly basis and really do this. And I realized how much I enjoyed that community, that ended up moving over into my art practice. And then now I've gotten so much more comfortable on video, which has been fantastic. And now I'm trying to take that consistency and all that stuff to my art group and my art practice. And just really have the both worlds.
Yeah, because one thing I was wondering actually was, like, you're working on something that's so small and so precise, and then paintings which are not.
Right.
Yeah,
they're two very different mediums. And I like to call myself the free spirit beater because I like to not worry too much about things being perfect in that either. I like to really give myself a lot of grace in how I put things together, and hopefully I'm extending that grace to others who might be struggling with how they're putting stuff together. And aside from the idea that you do have to get it to work, I mean, it has to be able to wear. So you do need to make certain things have to just happen, you know, the right way. But the design of it can really be kind of fun and free flowing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I just wondered because it's, yeah, you're right. It's completely different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. And I was thinking
Yeah.
today, actually, because I'm going to be doing a little video next week. And I was like, oh, I have a few things that marry the art and the jewelry because I've been combined painting and beading together. But I haven't done it a whole lot, though. And I was like, maybe that's something in the future that I'll do more of. But
Yeah. Interesting.
you know, I've always kept them very separate, and probably for that
Yeah.
reason, because they are so different in my
Mm.
mind.
Yeah.
But I do have a few
Yeah.
things in which they do connect. So I'll have
Mm.
to see how I can combine
Yeah.
them a little more.
It sort of makes sense, though. I would think that beading is quite meditative.
It
That's the right
is.
word. Yeah, because I have a similar thing where I teach mandalas, and I use that as more like a meditative process.
Right.
Because mandalas are very, very repetitive. When once you do a mark, you do the same mark all the way around. And then I go from that to complete free-form abstract. And it just really depends on my mood, of which one I feel I need.
Yeah,
I mean, both of them keep me sane.
right. I mean, really, what it all comes down to is creativity keeps us sane, honestly. That is like bottom line.
Yeah.
I don't think I could get through my life without it.
I could possibly, but I'd end up divorced for the second time.
Yeah,
creativity after my first marriage.
Oh, yes. I remember your before and after pictures, Angela. Yes. Very, very telling.
Depressed.
Very telling. I mean, it does make, I think so were you creative when you were younger, or was it something that just totally came to you later?
No, I was very creative when I was younger. Everything was, I loved playing with anything. I loved plasticine, like that 3D modeling thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I absolutely loved anything that I could make things from. And I have some really great memories of being encouraged by my granddad to play and make things. And I loved, and he was also a mechanic, and I loved being in the garage with him. And it was more about, oh, how does that work, and what happens if you take, so that whole curiosity and then as I got older, I had this desire to have a cafe with art on the walls, and I imagined people coming in and painting and maybe doing, and then one side there would be things for people who did knitting and crochet and everything. And so in my young imagination, that was what I really, really wanted to do. But my parents, who had their own business, dissuaded me very early on that it was not a good idea to set up your own business. So I eventually ended up in the corporate world as I got older, and my creativity was put to one side, really, because my husband, I was 20 when we got married. He was only 18. My gosh.
Wow.
I know. And so all of that just got put in a box, and I didn't do anything with it. And it wasn't until we separated, the first thing I did was I wanted to do an art course. I felt like I really wanted to do something creative, and I didn't have the money. I didn't actually have the money at the time. And I had those do you have those scratch cards?
Yes.
Yes, I bought one, and I got something. It was something like £71 because I was in the UK,
right?
And or 72 or something like that. Well, whatever it was the exact amount of money to book the art course. And then that was the first time I sort of let myself believe that there was something outside of myself as well. That's a different story.
Right.
And so I went on and I just joined this art course, which was about using lots of different materials.
Yeah.
And
And
it just,
I think your
yeah.
story is very common, you know, one of where, you
Mm,
know, you were very imaginative and creative as a kid, and, you know, it was something you really enjoyed. But as we get older and we, you know, move into all of those things in life and start adulting, it's something that just doesn't perceive to have value. You know what I mean?
no,
We know it does, but it doesn't
mm,
have the perception of value, and it just gets pushed aside. And it's something
yeah.
that, you know, when you come back to it,
Mm,
a lot of people come back to it very timid, or they come back to it thinking that it's really not for them, or, you know, like it,
mm,
and that like just breaks my heart. So to me, I'm
gosh.
just always trying to, you make something very easy entry, because
Mm,
it's for all of us, and it's such a wonderful way of living. There's just, it just brings so much to your life, and I
mm,
truly believe that it's kept me sane throughout lots of things that have happened in my life. And
yeah.
you know, you talked about not having money. A lot of things, especially early on, and I'm still pretty frugal, but especially early on when I started to come back to a tangible creativity, I would just work with stuff I would find around my house. Like I would take apart business envelopes that would come and have all that interesting patterns on them, or
Mm,
I've worked with tea bags. I've worked with all
I've
sorts of
tried
like
that.
recyclable
Yeah.
materials, because I didn't really have a budget to spend money on things,
Mm,
but I had to keep creating.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think a friend of mine did. I can't remember what it's actually called, but I think she called it junk journaling,
oh
and
yes, I've
that
heard of
was,
that. Yeah.
yeah, similar idea, and actually making journals out of all sorts of things. The cover could be the cardboard from a cereal carton,
Yes.
and then have all the individual pages, and you sort of, I think you stitch it, I think, and it's made from things that you find and
Just
making
around
marks.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I just, you just need a glue stick and a magazine or,
Right.
um,
I think
yeah,
I think that's the that was always quite fun and interesting in a way, whereas I just, what's around you? What do you have right now that you can create
mm,
with, you know? And we all have something.
mm,
There's, even when we talk about mandalas, like I've done flower mandalas, you know, where you just pick the petals and you put those
it's
around,
beautiful.
and
Yeah,
you can just get that in your, you know, your yard or a park or something like that. You can pick some leaves, and so there's
yeah,
always ways
yeah,
to find ways to bring that creative
yeah.
vibe
I
in.
ran a little challenge a number of years ago, and one of the things was to create a mandala with whatever you had around the house. And the one I loved the most was this lady had various kinds of pasta.
Oh, that is so
Yeah.
fun.
And it worked so well. She created this mandala just with the curly pasta and the tubes. And I thought,
Oh,
oh, actually, I really love that.
that's
So, yeah,
amazing. You know, that's
yeah,
also it also, and that's a really great challenge, because it makes people stop and think and look at their materials, you know, that are around there every day, and what could they use. And I'm sure it
yeah,
came up with some really inventive items. And
yeah,
why do I
yeah,
have all these spools of thread that I could now put into a
yeah,
mandala, you know,
exactly.
or
Who
whatever it
knew?
is?
Yeah. One of the other things I got them to do was I chose a color. I think it was yellow. And it was where, for the day, just when you've got your phone with you, when you see yellow, either around your house or if you're out and about, take a photograph. And it was amazing how many photos they would come back with. But also, that, like you said, then that made them think about, well, why have I got so much yellow around? And then what's the meaning of yellow? And then there's that
Yes.
whole creative journey that you go on. It's like, oh, wow, actually, that makes sense.
And it's, yeah, it's like following the curiosity, right? It's all about that.
Yeah.
It's like, and I was just going to say that I did a chakra color challenge where we did a art journal together, and each page was the color. And for that week, I had all these different things, you know, I told people to look in their closets and wear the color, or put the jewelry on, or take pictures of stuff around your house with that color. And it's interesting to note, well, why do I have so much of yellow, but I have like barely no orange, you know, and what do both of those mean? And how do I bring more orange in? And, you know, they're just, so it just kind of just brings your attention to stuff in a way that you wouldn't normally stop and think about.
No, not at all. So if you were if you were talking to someone who would love to give creativity a go or to be an artist, what would you say to them?
I really feel like a lot of the times I like to follow my curiosity. So speaking of curiosity, it's like, what is piquing your interest? And I tend to find, you know, for example, I'm very heavily into this floral phase right now, and it's been about 2 years. But prior to me starting on those canvases, I kept being drawn to florals when I was anywhere. If I was in a store, it would be flower pillows. If I was on Instagram, it would be picture other people's paintings of flowers. If I was, you know, out somewhere, I just felt like I kept being drawn. Like there was a curiosity there. There was something that kept piquing my interest. And I probably for a good 6 months or so before I actually painted anything. So I always, you know, just start to become aware, start to see where you see like patterns. That's something that's piquing your interest. Maybe you've always been curious about watercolors. Maybe there's something about that medium that you've always kind of looked at and went, oh, that's really nice, but then never thought of yourself to be able to do it. Or maybe you love ceramics. I mean, I'm always drawn to ceramics when I go out to a fair or something. I'm constantly looking at bowls and plates and, you know. So what things do you just sort of gravitate towards, and how can you bring a little of that in a small way? And so that would be just for the mindset, I guess. That would be like, be aware, see what's piquing your curiosity. As for physically doing something, I always suggest people get a small sketchbook and just some basic supplies, whether they want to try acrylic or they want to try watercolor, and just start like scribbling. Start, you know, I talk about soul scribbles, which you know, and just scribbling in general, and just starting to look at color patterns. And, you know, I think people get very stressed about, I don't know how to draw a thing. So
I get that.
So trying to get them to think creatively without having to draw a thing would be, you know, my biggest, I think, message for that is you don't have to draw a thing.
No. Yeah. I know when I'm teaching, we go through one of the weeks where we actually have a go with, we're going all loose on the canvas, and then one week we have a go of, let's just try and outline up something. And it doesn't need to stay, it can, at the end of the day, it's just lines, and we'll just keep on going. And that sometimes freaks people out, because suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, I have to draw something and it has to look like the thing. And I often say to them, it's like, do you know, when I'm creating, whatever's in my head is not what comes out the brush or my fingers onto the canvas. And I've just had to learn to love what comes through.
Out. Yeah.
But also it doesn't actually have to be an actual thing. It doesn't have to be even a representation. You might be completely abstract in the way that you paint, and that's absolutely fine.
Right.
But yeah, that I have had people, they have this visceral reaction when I say I teach art, and they immediately go, oh, I can't draw. I can't even draw a straight line, and get really panicky in case I'm going to say, why don't you come and do an art class? Which I don't.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I had one lady who I'd known her for about 3 years, and every time I'd see her, she would like literally panic in case I was going to ask her. And then this one time, she randomly booked into one of my classes and came.
Because she really probably wanted, you almost were like presenting a mirror in a way that was probably making her freak out because she knew she kind of wanted to do it.
Yeah. So she came along and she had the most marvelous time and she wrote a lovely, it's not really just a testimonial, it's actually about her journey and how she got out of her own way. And I absolutely love it, but it had to be the right time. I find that there's no point in saying to people, oh, you'll be fine. You know, it's like, you
want them to feel ready to step into it, you know? Yeah, for sure. And like, I just love how you said, get out of your own way. Because coming back to that perfectionism, I mean, I think that's really what we're learning to do is get out of our own way and, you know, be okay in that perfectly imperfect space and let things just go and let them appear. Someone said, and I really kind of took it to heart, is like, just because you really like how somebody makes something doesn't mean that you're going to end up expressing yourself in the same way. And you really have to get comfortable with how your expression shows up in the world. And you can still admire somebody else for what they create, but if you're always trying to get there, you know, you're not being really true to who you are. And so that's like, you know, that's really, I feel like for me, when I'm trying to be perfect, I'm trying to fit into some other vision, some other thing out there. And it's when you really just really listen to your own truth and let things unfold the way your essence comes out, then it's imperfectly perfect you.
Exactly. I mean, I think it's great that people sign up and do classes, and the online world is amazing because you can take classes with artists that you love from all over the world. But I have one friend in particular, she might watch this video. I can remember her having to do an audit of how many classes she'd signed up for and not actually done. And I think it was something like 32.
Oh my God.
It was some horrific number. And she had it on a spreadsheet. She put it on a spreadsheet. There were so many that she'd signed up for with all of her logins and everything.
Oh my God.
And I think sometimes, it might be Flora Bowley I heard say this, that when you're spending so much time watching other people create on Instagram and YouTube and all the rest of it, you're not actually in there doing it for yourself. So that idea of less consuming and more actual doing is super important. And I think if you take from them the little bits that are useful to you and then I actually stop following certain people because it gets in my head that, you know, I can't paint like that. Well, actually, no, I can't paint like that because I paint like I paint. But even I get into that, it'd be great to be able to do that.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's just human nature. I think it's just human nature that you're going to you fall back into that, you know, and you see certain things and you're going, oh, gosh, if it just looked like that. Yeah. But that's their expression, right? So and I agree with you. Classes are fantastic. It's wonderful to learn, see what different people do. They all, you know, there's so many people have different styles and approaches and rituals and all the ways they show up creatively. And it's fun to see what they're doing, but there's a balance. And if you're doing too much of that and not enough of your own, then you're losing something in the process.
Yeah, and time's precious as well. I think for me, time is the most important thing. And so if you're spending it just going through all the reels on Instagram, watching other artists, you're not actually creating something for yourself. And you're watching it because your soul is crying out to do it.
That's so true.
Yes.
That's a good point. That's a really, so, you know, you just don't, you're in that space and you're going, oh, your soul's going, can you just get in the studio already? But then you've scrolled and now you're exhausted. And
exactly. Now you're too tired or it's too late or it's dinner time. And Say, oh, tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So what's lighting you up at the moment? What's your thing at the moment?
Well, divine feminine and just goddess energy, and really kind of an embodiment of being okay with desiring things and pleasure, and just moving my body in ways that feel good and taking that to the canvas. So I've got like this goddess behind me here. And
cool.
thank you. And I've got this rainbow. Let's see if I can. Oh, this one's up on the easel.
I saw that online. Fabulous.
So that one is one I've just finished. And yeah, so I've just been in this space of trying to just tap into that divine feminine. Moon cycles, all, you know, kind of paying attention to that is always fun. I love to go dance out in the full moon, and I love to just... So I feel like that's where my curiosity is right now, is how do I just bring in more of that feminine energy and goddesses and all of that kind of stuff.
It's lovely to hear, actually, because quite often as women we're told that we're too much, you know, like, yeah, you're too loud or you're too sensitive, or, you know, there's a lot of being told that you're too much, and it's good to hear that someone's actually embracing that whole feminine energy and just allowing yourself to be yourself. Yeah.
I think that's I even have a little book about all the different goddesses, so I don't remember to look at it every month, but there's like it talks about different goddesses and ways to kind of call them in, and so I've just been sort of surrounding myself with that idea and that practice at the moment.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. So
what are you up to? What's got your
my biggest, well, the biggest one at the moment, it is big, is actually I took Dream Big, Paint Big online. And so at the moment I'm halfway through an 8-week program where I'm taking a group of students through creating their own intuitive art. And I absolutely love taking that class. And just, there's a couple of things. One is watching them on their journey from, you start off with this massive white canvas, which is really scary. And most of them haven't painted before. So that is really
now they're
scary.
Just going really big. I think just going big for anyone, even people that have painted before, is scary. So
it is scary. So is that belief in themselves. You can see it. It's like watching a flower open as they go on. I love that. But the other thing I love is the community.
Yeah.
So we do it online, but I don't get them to turn off their mics, and I'll play music and stuff so that they can hear it. But they can actually see each other's paintings, and I actually do encourage them to talk to each other, like you would if you were in a normal art class.
Right.
And I love that, because I also learn so much from them, because somebody will say, oh, have you thought of doing this? And I say, oh, that's really cool, actually. I didn't think of that. I'll have to think of that. and so I learn heaps. And for me, somebody, I asked in the group the other day, if you were to try and describe Dream Big, Paint Big, how would you describe it? And they all came back with different things. But one of them said, which I loved it because it was so simple, was it's 2 hours a week where I can fully express myself in the safety of a group that is there to help me on my journey. And I thought, wow. And I love that it wasn't about me as the teacher. Yeah. It was about the group. And I thought, that's it. Yeah, that is it.
She's got it right there. Yeah, that's amazing. It's just knowing that you have that space and that time and that community to really be fully expressed. That's awesome.
Yeah. And interesting, I've got something on my wall, because I was at one point I was thinking, gosh, this is 8 weeks in a row that I'm doing this. And I was thinking like, well, why did I put that out there in the first place to do? Like, it's big commitment, 8 Sundays was each week. And I've written Dream Big, Paint Big allows me time each week in the studio, and I get paid to play and have fun.
So that's why you did it.
And exactly.
It's a good reminder. Yeah.
It
is a big commitment. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, it does. At the time it felt like it, but now we're more than halfway through and I'm going,
I can't believe it's going to end. Yeah. I know, you'll be sad when it's over.
Exactly. I'll be doing another one later in the year. So, yeah. But I think the other thing that I've decided, I've been doing in-person workshops because in New Zealand, we haven't really had those COVID restrictions, being a little island in the middle of nowhere. Right. And so I've been doing in-person workshops, and I've made the decision that I want to stop doing those because I actually want to try and spread my message further. Yeah. And not just in the little town that I live in. I actually want to work with more people outside of New Zealand. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that feels like a big change and a big step, right? To really say, okay, I'm ready to move beyond my community here and spread my wings out further away. Yeah. But I do feel that I needed to do that. I did a lot of learning while I was teaching workshops in person. Yeah. So when I do my Painting Happiness workshop, there's a point in the workshop that often emotions come up. And because I've ran it so many times, in the in-person workshops, I would get to that stage and then I'd scan the room and go, okay, who's going to crack? Right. You were ready for it. Because there's always one, at least one. And it's about happiness. So it is a fun class, but it's just what creativity does. Yeah, it's a vulnerable place, you know? Yeah. And so when I do that online, it's the same. I get to the same point and I'll go, okay, which one in the little box? Right. And you wouldn't have that intuition to know and stop there and check if you hadn't done it in person and really had those moments. Because there is a little, it's a little easier online to shy away or turn off your video or something, to kind of, whereas in person, you're in it. So all of that practice really made you aware for when you can spot it. Yeah. Because I was a little bit concerned, actually, because I actually read energy, and I was concerned that I wouldn't be able to read it online, but you can. Yeah. I can feel when someone's energy drops, and it's like, oh, okay, right, I need to go and work with this person. Oh, that's really neat. Yeah, I'm so glad it translates, because it would feel very different if it didn't translate for you online. So maybe you needed that to happen so that you can say, oh, hey, you know what? I can take this out there. This I can do that. Yeah. I can. Yeah. So, and I guess I wouldn't have met, lovely people like you had I not ventured onto the online world. My world would be really small. And I feel I'm part of a much bigger tribe. And some people are on the call now. Yeah, it's definitely being involved in the online space has allowed me to meet people like you and just so many people from around the world, South Africa, Hong Kong, New Zealand, like just all sorts of places I may never get to and, would never have the opportunity to otherwise. So, it is very special in that way. Yeah. You'll have lots of places to stay. Yes, I know. It's so true. I should really think about that. Like, okay, where I should put a map of where people are that I know. And like a massive round the world trip, just couch surfing with people that you know. Oh, from your mouth to the universe. Yay! Well, it's very beautiful here, but be careful if you do come. It's I came here on holiday and then didn't go back to the UK. So you know. You said I don't want to take that trip. I'm just going to stay put.
it's a beautiful place to be. So
Yeah, yeah. I love being here. Yeah, yeah. I'm very happy. Very happy.
oh, I love
Uh,
that.
yeah. We're pretty much at the end of our time,
All
actually. It feels like
right.
we're talking for
I
5 minutes.
know. I
Yeah,
know. It went so quickly. It's always lovely talking with you,
yeah.
Angela.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd like to have a laugh with you. You've
yes.
got such an infectious smile.
Thank
How do
you.
people find you? How, if people are
So
looking?
you can find me here on Instagram at Kristen Fagan, and you can also find me on YouTube at Kristen Fagan Art. And then if you'd like to join my creativity circle, my group over on Facebook is called Discover Your Creative Magic. And that's where I show up right now the most consistently and just share and have, I have 2 live videos a month where we talk about a theme, and do an art making project. And that's something that has really grown in the last year and a half, and has been such a great extension to be able
Yeah,
to talk with people and just, just create together and
yeah.
dive into that creative world of creative living, as well as creative making.
Yeah, I can highly recommend that because I joined in a couple of yours, and you just create such a lovely space for everybody, and it's just very easy, and there's no pressure.
Thank
And
you.
I think that was really special, and so yeah. So if anybody they get all the way to the end of this
I
video,
know.
hopefully,
Oh, I
I will put
appreciate that.
links as well.
I just,
Yeah.
the one last thing I want to just mention is that I am a guest teacher in the 2021 Make, Create, Express workshop. And that is put on through Art is Magic is the name of the website that does that. But you can find the details over on my Instagram page and on
Cool.
my little link tree. It's there too. It's a year-long workshop. There's 28 different teachers from around the world, and there is a free creative retreat weekend that is July 10th and 11th. So you can join it
Awesome.
for free for the weekend, or you can join the year-long program. And so
That sounds amazing.
I actually teach her. That's one of the classes in there.
Yay.
And I don't know the other ones around somewhere, but we didn't end up creating any art, Angela.
No, we didn't. I've actually got a blank page.
I know, I had my sketchbook open. But we do a little moon painting, and this is some of my sketches of it beforehand. That's another one of the classes that I teach. So pretty excited about that, and happy to be sharing that with everybody.
Yeah, great. Well, hopefully a few people will see this and sign up, but I will put your links after
Thank you.
so people can find you. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming today.
Oh, it was so lovely. I'll chat with you anytime.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure we'll have another one to talk about.
I know. All right.
Okay.
Maybe next time we'll have to try and do some art.
Yeah. Maybe we'll start with the art and then add in the chat.
There you go. Maybe.
Okay.
All right.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.